Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to everybody watching us now on LinkedIn, Facebook, also listening to us in Clubhouse, and also watching us on YouTube. It's a pleasure to have you with us on this rainy and very cold morning in Japan. I believe it's not only in Tokyo. Tim, how is it in Atami?
Yeah, it's pretty chilly here. Probably a little warmer. Let me see what the
Maybe
weather is.
a degree, yeah, a degree or two warmer than
It,
Tokyo.
my app says 11, but it's always 2 degrees lower than reality, so it must be measured up the hill. So it's probably 13 degrees here. Of
Right.
course, centigrade. We're not in the Fahrenheit world here.
No, not really.
Not in the American bubble. So I don't know what it is. What's Tokyo?
Well, Tokyo, I didn't check, but it's probably around 3 or 4 degrees this morning. The maximum degree will
Oh,
be much, much higher, about
oh wow.
13, they say. Yeah, yes,
Oh my gosh.
yes. So, but okay, we'll survive. We have survived worst. And
Yes.
now I want to, yes, once again say a good morning and welcome to Dr. Joe Hug. Dr. Joe is back, and we're very happy to have you with us this morning. So, after I think we haven't been doing this for about 3 months, and it's really a pleasure to have this opportunity to talk with you again and hear once again the next story about Japanese SMEs and also the findings you and your students made in 2024 to everybody who is here for the first time and hasn't met Joe Hug yet. So, Dr. Joe Hug is a professional universe. Oh, that is, you changed your tagline on LinkedIn. Yes, a polymath. If I can say,
Holy
I
math.
remember the polymath, and also a
I don't
universe.
even know what that means, and that just says a lot
Gotcha.
right there about me.
Yes.
Nothing about me.
But also, yes, Dr. Joe Hag teaches students at the Professional University of Information and Management, and that is information and management for
I know it's a
innovation.
long name. It's a long name,
It's a
right?
long name, yes. And also,
Innovation.
he's,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's innovation. Right
an
on.
adjunct professor, with the Global MBA program at Houze Business School of Innovation and Management. So thank you very much, Dr. Joe. And we are actually here to listen to you today once again and have a conversation on the way as well. Before that, though, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors. And the first one is Kanchu, or as they are also known online, kanachu.com. Uh,
That's
Okay,
not them.
here we go. No, that's not it. I have, yes, this morning, here we go.
Yeah.
Our software is acting a little bit slow, but that's fine. And well, if you haven't met James Howell yet, you can meet him on LinkedIn or you can connect with him at james@kanachu.com. Kanachu and James will offer assistance and services in the fields of buying and selling real estate in Yokohama, also real estate investment and property management. So if you're new to Japan and you're still worried about your Japanese language skills, James Howell will help you with that because you can talk with him in English. His colleagues can talk with you in Japanese, so the language barrier will not be there. We have worked with James for a while, and we are very happy of this opportunity to be able to represent him and Kanachu here on our podcast. And now let's go into the topic and the conversation of today's podcast. Let's see what you found out last year, you and your students, Dr. Joe.
Thank you, Maya, and to the listeners who get to hear this great podcast every week, either live or recorded. Always appreciate the listeners and, of course, the sponsors. And a small apology for my voice. I've had this runny nose yesterday, and actually I was worse yesterday, so it seems to get better, but I'm still, my voice is quite not right. So,
I'm
We
sorry.
can
so I,
understand that. We appreciate you
Mm.
playing hurt. So
yeah, and I promise this is my face and voice.
You're not an
you're
avatar.
not a
I'm not an
bot. You're not
avatar.
a
I'm not like
AI
the famous
agent.
cat.
Right.
Oh, that's hilarious. But yeah, and to update anybody or new listeners who may not know or had not heard any of the previous episodes where I was able to share information with all of you, a little bit about what I do and then what today's program is about. And so what I've done is uh, um, many years ago I came upon the topic of hidden champions, and a hidden champion is a term that was coined by a professor in Germany who wanted to know who are these SMEs that are niche or leaders in their industries but are relatively unknown. I mean, like nobody knows them, or they're not famous, but they are leaders in their own right.
Mhm.
So he started doing research in Germany, and then over I don't know how many years, maybe the last 20 years or more, expanded their research into other nations. And I had a professor once who was doing the research here in Japan, but unfortunately he passed on. So nobody really continued that research in Japan for probably 10 years or so. There are some Japanese academics who do similar research, but unfortunately, a lot of their findings and publishings is in Japanese. So
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
if you do like the Google research, you won't find it. You know?
Gotcha.
So, unless your kanji is really good, your reading kanji
Mhm.
is good, like Maya. And
Yeah.
Tim, maybe you'll be able to get away with it, but for folks like me, unfortunately, I'm not able to read those reports.
Yeah.
But hey, AI, right? AI is changing
No,
all that.
AI is
So
getting better. Like you can,
yeah,
you get a good gist, but you still gotta be skeptical when you read it, and
Yeah.
it's you got to be able to go back to the original Japanese and cross, double check that AI did it the right way. Like you can't
mm,
just take
mm,
it for
take it for what
what
it.
you see in English. If
Right,
that's what you do, right? You got to,
right.
yeah. But if there's a lot of unfamiliar kanji, AI finds that right away for you and gets that out of the way, and then you can just focus on the syntax and what
Mhm.
the meaning is versus what was translated. You comparing
Mm,
it, but it
mm.
Yeah.
still gets a good start. I
It
don't know
is
what
getting
you
much
find.
better. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maya, yeah. Do you find it to be more accurate, the AI translation?
I think that, yes, as Tim said, it has improved. So, and it has improved much at a much faster or faster pace than Google Translate, right? Because
yes,
maybe,
exactly.
for Google it took a couple of years or maybe even several years to improve. With the AI, it's the improvements are really much faster.
Yeah,
And but once again, you always have to cross-check it because sometimes I have also noticed that sometimes I use ChatGTP at the moment, but sometimes it doesn't give you the right kanji character. Okay,
Mm,
yeah, right,
and
right, right.
yeah, and so because some of the kanji characters you have, they have a similar or the same reading, but they have different meanings. And
mm.
sometimes ChatGTP does not give you the right one. The meaning is what I mean.
Yeah, I
So
agree. It's
so
a homonym of a different kanji. It's the same homonym. But the
yes,
thing, to me, what I notice is Japan is kind of inherently ambiguous. It's not as precise
right.
as English or
Mm,
German in its writing. So a lot of my Japanese friends who are engineers say I would rather read English than Japanese. They're native Japanese because English is more exact. And again, a lot of times, what's the subject? Sometimes it's left out and assumed and things like that. So to me, that's also a problem. Like
Mm,
AI couldn't know.
mm.
Only
right.
humans
Yeah.
would know what they were saying, right?
So AI is not so intelligent.
Yeah.
Well, it's still, a very binary thing because it goes with 0 and 1, right? So all the algorithmic, or if I don't know whether they use algorithmic, but the code there is still 0 and 1, right? So,
Yeah.
and while our brains are so much richer,
Great.
yes, and more complex. So I think it depends on the angle, the perspective. So who knows?
Well, my just to add to that point, one of my favorite authors, Robert Pirsig, who wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, he made the point you made. He goes, "There's 0 and 1. It's binary," but he goes, "The Japanese have a concept, and it's a third concept, and the concept is mu. When you
Moon,
unplug the computer, mu, nothingness,
right,
1, 0, and nothing. So
right.
it's another
That
dimension that Japanese culture adds to it." He goes, and that's a valid dimension. We can't ignore
it
that.
is, yes.
Right.
If you
And
can get to that one, right? Because for many people, it's difficult still to get to the mood dimension.
yeah, the mood.
Yeah.
I agree. Anyway,
Mm.
we digress, but hey, that's what we
Okay.
do here.
No, I love it. No, no, no. I
How about
love
that,
this.
Joe?
I always get to learn a little bit here. uh, yeah, yeah. So going back to the main topic was about these hidden champions. So because professors, academics, researchers in Japan don't offer much of their insights in English, I felt it would be a nice it would be a nice topic for myself and my
Perfect.
research students to take on.
A nice niche. That's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
nice.
nice
Yeah, I
niche.
like it. I like it.
Um, so we've done this for the last 4 years now, and every year we interview new niche companies in different industries,
Mhm.
and we've come across some general similarities between them. Uh, Although in their own right, they are very special in what they do, and the leadership style is also can be quite unique. Uh, but there are some things that they do share, and that's what today is going to be about. I'd like to continue the research maybe for one more year, but I've been meaning to publish this final outcome of what we've got. So I just wanted to share, kind of, if you will, an early
Yes.
early version.
A sneak
Great.
peek.
A
Sneak
sneak peek, yes. A teaser,
peek.
if you wish.
Yeah,
Yes.
teaser. I love that. Yeah. A trailer.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
uh,
Mhm.
okay, so that's the main topic, is these SMEs. So if you're interested in Japanese business, Japanese culture, Japanese organizations, uh, or Japanese-ness, anything, I think this is of quite interest to any of the listeners. But also, there's a bit of a cross section between the SMEs that we're researching, but also in how it can help uh, the youth of Japan. Uh,
Mhm.
and what I'm alluding to here is that young people are being looked upon, I hope, by everyone as, uh, for lack of a better word, the saviors of Japan.
The
Because as you
savior.
Right.
know, Japan's economy is not so good right now. With Tim, you were going to say so. I'm sorry.
No,
No,
no. This
no,
is.
it's true. Well, I mean,
I'm in
stating the
agreement.
truth is just, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
what it
and
is.
the economy is not doing so well. Unfortunately, Japan, like many other nations around the globe, but probably the top in the list of losing, uh, of a shrinking society.
Mm-hmm.
So, so what can we do to bring about some potential solutions? And I believe that the things that we're finding in these SMEs and the the kind of the link that it has to learning entrepreneurial skills, for example, can help young people and any others who read this study in the end, um, to see that there are ways to continue the historical way of doing things, but also meet more modern needs, right?
Right. Yeah. Yes.
So
And figuring out what is valuable to keep from tradition, because there is always value. It got you
sure,
this far, and
Yeah.
what to let go of. Making those decisions are that's the secret sauce, right? Making the right decisions. So, but I think Japan's
absolutely.
they've been pretty good at it historically. If you look back through their history, they often figured it out. You know what I mean? Like I thought, Tokui, I think it's a strength compared to
Yeah.
other, maybe, I don't know. Just a
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
certainly. I think in a sort of way, we humans, I'm a nerd and I like reading and and I don't watch TV, but I do watch online documentaries. And I was watching this documentary about the end of the dinosaurs, right? So sorry, we're
No, no,
digressing
let's
No,
digressing a
let,
little
no,
bit. But
I'm a
but
dinosaur, so I want to hear this.
so
I'm a th-
you
I
know
see.
the end of the dinosaur era, and there's all these theories, right? There's the asteroid theory and the UFO theory, whatever theory.
yeah.
But this German researcher with this really thick accent, it was really cool to listen to him. Um, in the end of the documentary, he said humans are the only animals that are able to adapt faster, and in many ways that animals are not able to sometimes to keep up with sudden change. And so that's why we as humans have outlived many of these animals that
Mm-hmm.
we used to have on Earth. And even now, right? Some animals are having difficulties adapting to changes.
Right.
Except
Yeah.
we humans keep growing, our population.
Yeah, we're thinking machines, is what
Yeah,
we are. You know. Yeah.
yeah. So like so that made me think what Tim just said, right? Is that the Japanese as a culture, as a people, will always find a way to adapt. It may not be the final version that we're envisioning and or as quickly as we wish them to be, but they will.
Yeah.
And I agree.
Yeah.
I feel that too. I feel that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump right in, shall we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we get to the 30-minute mark of this recording.
Okay. Shall I bring the slide, the first one on
Yeah,
the
the first slide says
on screen?
findings.
Okay. Just
That's
give me
not
a
it either.
second. Yeah. Okay. I guess this is the one.
That's the one. So
Yeah.
so this is again, this is a summary, little peek, as I mentioned. No real details, but let me just kind of add some information. So last year we visited. Actually, we visited 10 companies, but I didn't include two because they were venture capital companies,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Okay.
thought it would be kind of an odd balance to throw them in
Gotcha.
here.
Makes sense.
So, anyways, we visited 8 SMEs last year. We're hoping to do. Um, I've got 5 research students now, and each of them has to do 5. So we're hoping to hit 20 this year at minimum.
Great. Yeah.
Um, and some things we learned, right? We learned about their strategies, challenges, et cetera, et cetera. Um, what they did share, right, and that was common between them is that they are the niche market leader in what industry they were in. One of the most interesting one was a hotel. Now, the reason I say it's interesting is because uh, as I've mentioned before in other episodes, some of the oldest companies in Japan are like 500 years old, and the
Mhm.
majority of those old companies that are still in business, the 500-year-old, the 300-year-old ones, are in the hotel industry. There you go.
Right. Yes. India. Yeah.
So that was our first chance to visit this hotel industry leader. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we I had been avoiding it because I thought, okay, well, that in itself may not be as comparable to let's say an engineering firm that has
Mm-hmm.
to adapt its
Yeah.
machines, adapt its technology. You know, hotel
Yeah.
can just be traditional and not really change much, right?
Right.
Humans.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but we actually, okay, let's visit one, and then we did learn a lot. We learned quite a lot. So there is much value to those really ancient, if you will, businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the other thing we learned here, and it's in key characteristics, is that they're all looking forward. They're all looking forward to globalizing, meaning uh, they're not against going global. They're not against expanding overseas. However, it is a challenge. If you look down at the challenge section where it says common challenges and it says growth and focus, what that means
Mm-hmm.
is they want to grow, but they're afraid of how do they keep the focus of quality. You know,
Right.
how do you do that? How do you keep what what they're able, why they became leaders, and how do you keep that once you start expanding? Then you just become kind of like run of the mill, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Organization. And I think I think Tim could give us some insight because he may know more about how the differences are of engineering quality between, let's say, America and Japan, where Japan, um, like one piece of a product that doesn't meet the quality, that's just, you lose face. You don't want to put it out there in the market for sale. Where American companies are more apt to say, "Oh, one is bad or two is bad. Oh, okay, that's not, that's not, that's okay. We'll put it out there."
Right. Yes.
uh, so it's a fear that we heard from all the companies. It's this fear of they do want to go global, but how do they keep that quality? One of the
It,
other things too is talent.
at its essence, I would just add, at its
Yeah.
essence, 'cause I actually was with a company that was terrified of going to America, and I went there and I built a factory with them, and they were terrified of failing, and
Mm,
engineering was one dimension of that.
mm,
But they had no clue what they were doing, and I had no clue. Like, I didn't know what we were getting into at that point, and the challenges turned out to be, you say like, is there engineering is good? Yeah, if you're in a big city area and you recruit from prestigious universities, but if you're in an old tobacco field with very little industry around it other than your one big customer, it's going to be hard finding talented engineers to come there, but they don't know this when they buy that land with all those tax incentives. So what I'm saying is a lot of I understand that the fear is there, but their challenges are more in their ability to educate the locals and to connect with them and to adapt and adjust so there's better communication. Like they didn't know what they didn't know, right? And so it resonates what you say, because some people don't want to get hung out to dry. In other words, if the overseas facility fails, everybody who is involved, that's a dark mark on your. I'm not saying every company's that way, but in many companies it is. So there's a lot of pressure under those
mm,
circumstances.
mm.
So
To
it
me, it's
resonates.
really, yes, it's really interesting thinking about what you just said, Tim, because it sounds like, yes, what Dr. Joe said, that the Americans are not really so afraid of pushing out a product which is not, premium quality, right? But they are afraid actually of being blamed within the organization.
Yes.
While with so they have this how can I say, they feel they hesitate to admit
Their
fault
own failure.
within the organization,
Yes.
right? But
Yeah.
with the Japanese, it's the other way around. They are
It's
afraid.
everybody's fault.
Yes, in Japan, it's everybody's fault, and they're looking for those faults in order to improve the product within the organization. But they do not want to how can I to sell a product which is under the quality they want, right? So how can I say it is? These are really two opposite vectors.
Actually, and my point, Maya, and
Okay.
we're ready to
Yeah.
break it a little bit. My point is, if approached strategically and properly, I have seen Japanese organizations win over the local Americans and align them to their quality
Right.
standards. But the know-how of doing that is often absent. And that's where I see the breakdown. I think there is potential to train locals, get them indoctrinated into your company culture, and raise the value of quality within the organization. It is possible, but it has to be approached cross-culturally, strategically. That's the point. But yes, that gap exists. So that makes the challenge even more important, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think if we look at a recent example, is the quality and loyalty to the products of Uniqlo, right? That which is funny because Uniqlo originally was not known for quality.
Right. In the beginning.
If any of the listeners here working for Uniqlo, please don't don't get angry at me. But the expectation and then the loyalty to the company culture was able to be taught, as Tim said, right? Was able to be
doable,
injected into the local stores and management, and didn't have to be, all Japanese staff. For example, in New York, right? It was local folks that bought into and understood the culture.
Yes.
Unnecessary.
Toyota has done a great job. I know lots of Toyota American employees in the U.S. who are totally bought into the Toyota production system. It's in their bones. I know Honda people who are like really into it, but not all organizations have achieved that level. And obviously the larger organizations have the resources to recruit good people, train people, get them indoctrinated. So yeah, it's doable.
Yeah. And so, so the challenge then, therefore, is how do these SMEs achieve something like that? And like you said, it might have to take time or money, resources, the right people, the knowledge, the know-how,
and the fear. I mean, they got to overcome the fear. I mean, everybody's afraid. I understand. I'd be afraid too. I was afraid. I'm not even Japanese. I was afraid, but it all worked out. But boy, it was a grind. We did not see the trouble coming, because we just didn't know. If I could rewind the clock, knowing now what I knew, what I know now back then, I would have approached it in a totally different way. Right. But
sure.
The dots connect backwards, right, Maya?
Yes, they do. Very much so.
We're at the halfway point, which is good because
we want to do our quick break.
Commercial because break. We're going to switch slides anyways, and then we've got our sponsors. So
perfect.
Take it away, Maya.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's see whether I can get. Oh, okay, it worked this time. Okay. So a shout out to our other sponsor. This is Houze. They are also known as Houze Inc. You can find them on the URL, which is shown here on this slide. It is www.houze.co.jp, and connect with them via the webmaster email at the same domain. They do custom home design and construction, also commercial building construction. They are based in Yokohama as well, and you can connect with them very easily on LinkedIn or, online as well. One person who looks for them, and you know her well probably, that is Hana Howell. She is on LinkedIn, and if you haven't connected with her, please reach out to her and try to talk with her if you have any projects in mind in these fields here. So Hana speaks English and she speaks Japanese as well. The language barrier is not going to be there. We know Hana well as James, and we have worked with her before. This is one of the many reasons that we're happy to have Houze Inc. here as a sponsor on our podcast. And once again, if you haven't connected with Hana, please reach out or just send an email to Houze, and they will be back to you very soon. Now back to the podcast and the conversation about SMEs and what Dr. Joe and his students discovered last year. Let me bring the slide here. Ooh, here. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so once again, kind of look at it all over again. But yeah, 8 companies, some of the things we learned, the challenges that they have. At the bottom of this slide, it says diversity. What that meant is that we looked at a kind of a span of different types of industries amongst these 8 companies. Some were in engineering, others were in software. Obviously, some are, a majority of them, in traditional crafts, green tech, and then of course the one I mentioned was a hotel, which was really nice. So we're trying to get an understanding, and our research, myself and my students, is a wide variety of industry leaders, so that we don't get too focused on one type, and then maybe not reflect the reality of what's out there with these SMEs. So yeah, the next slide now.
Yes.
The next slide is again very simple, but some recommendations for ourselves. This is for ourselves, not specifically for the companies. We're not telling them what to do. But this is a recommendation for ourselves, meaning we didn't do as deep a questioning of some of these items, for obvious reasons. These SMEs, by the way, you can hear me, right? Am I okay?
Yes, you are okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
I have a stuffy nose, and sometimes I don't hear myself. It's really strange. Sometimes these SMEs don't feel comfortable sharing too much information.
Yeah.
Meaning they like where they are, the positioning in the marketplace. I have had one or two or maybe more people come to me, specifically 2 years ago, somebody from China who was interested in my data for the purpose of purchasing these SMEs. And so these SMEs know that they're like, so they're a little bit weary of any researcher or anyone asking too many questions, especially when it comes to finance.
Right.
How much are you making? What is your profit margins? Blah, blah, blah. So they're not willing to share, and we were not willing to push that issue. But I think in the future it would help to have a little bit of information. So I'm kind of contemplating right now how to go about it, how to ask. The
Just
other
a
thing
general, just a general thought is,
yeah,
the stronger the human relationship that you build,
Yeah.
the more trust, and then the question is, with whom do you create that relationship? And I guess it's as many people as possible. It's still not a guarantee. Yeah,
Right.
they play it pretty close to the vest, so I understand your
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah. And I think it would take multiple visits, right? What,
Oh,
Yes.
you know,
maybe years. Sorry,
yeah.
Peter.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean,
Uh, but
and the way we're
you know,
doing it is we visit
yeah,
them and we don't hear from them for maybe 2, 3 years, and then,
yeah, yeah. I
which is a
get
little
it.
sad, but
Yeah, yeah.
unless my study is confined to 5 SMEs, then I think it would be possible. But we're trying to get as many as we can. So.
Yes. Yeah, indeed.
And then again, they're not listed companies for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's not like we can go online and get their
Gotcha.
annual reports. It's
Hmm.
not
They're
there.
mostly family owned.
Yes,
Yeah.
mostly I would say
There's a
ninety
lot of
percent of them.
advantages to family owned
Right.
that are
Yeah.
underappreciated, I think. But yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really fascinating because once again we have mentioned this before and talked about this topic in previous podcasts with you, Dr. Joe. But I believe that there is a lot of value in business not going public.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because I understand also the value of going public. There is value there as well if you want to grow. And nowadays, if you're a startup and want to grow exponentially, you need capital and you need investment and so on. But I do appreciate the value of small and maybe middle-sized businesses that are still family owned and that can concentrate on quality of work, quality of product, and quality of operations because they do not have to cater to the needs of their shareholders. It's
which
just their
which implies long term versus short term. I think as soon as
yes,
you go public, it focuses you more on next quarter's earnings
right.
than
Hmm.
normally would. While I think family owned companies, assuming they have at least sufficient resources, can look down the line. So the company I went with initially to the U.S., they were thinking, oh, maybe we can break even 10 years from now. And they
Mm.
broke even like in their third or fourth year. But they still had this long-term orientation. So I think that is a strategic advantage over the long haul,
Mm.
is how I see it.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, you can build it as a strategic advantage, but then once again, you have to be prepared psychologically to play the long-term game.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Be Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. And it's almost similar, and that's why personally I felt that there was a link between these SMEs that we were researching and entrepreneurship in general. But entrepreneurs, I think, sometimes get different types of advice, and one advice that they get is, yeah, grow fast and exit, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or get listed in Japan particularly.
Yeah.
Get listed, sell,
Yeah.
or
Right.
It's
merge.
Yeah.
incentivized.
Yeah, rather than getting the advice of, hey, do what you love, and then just keep doing it. And
Hmm.
if growth is part of that, excuse me, if growth is part of that um, plan, then take it as it comes, right?
Yeah.
So
And
sometimes the
sustain it.
advice is,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to me also, I was thinking it's a different point again, but okay, sustainability. We talk about sustainability, and it has become a buzzword and everything. But I think that in business, basically, sustainability is very important, and
Yeah.
it is an opposite. It is an antonym of constant growth
mm,
because everybody wants to grow, and I understand that it's important, but sustainable growth is different from exponential growth, right?
mhm, mhm,
And I think that in many countries nowadays, Japan included, it's really difficult to go to continue growing every year, let's
mm,
say, to keep the rate of growth.
mm,
So
Yeah.
right? And growth and sustainability at the end of the day may be two opposing terms if you're thinking once again in the long term, right? So
Is
because
unlimited growth a realistic concept?
right, yes, and especially in a country like Japan where the population is shrinking, and of course we have a lot of let's say people who are, I mean, the population is not only shrinking but it's aging as well, right? So it's really becoming more and more difficult to be sustainable, let alone to have how can I say, consistent growth rate. But
Yeah.
these are just some thoughts, and many people might disagree with me, which I appreciate too. But thinking about this, short and long term and growth and sustainability, at the end of the day, we're probably going to see that sustainability is different from growth.
And Joe, to your point about people being encouraged to like start it up, get it listed, make your money, and leave, right? And like I agree, it's like the opposite of the what we're talking about. Some of these 500-year-old companies. On the other hand, and this is just playing the devil's advocate, I think there are people who are very talented at starting something new, but they're not talented at managing it and sustaining it. Sometimes, if it's handed off to somebody who can now take that and manage it in a sustainable way, it's almost like a baton touch. The first guy did what he's good at. I know
Right,
so many
yes.
people are great at startups, but they're just not very good at maintaining every day operations, or they don't like to. They don't want to.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. You're right. I think there's many great visionaries or creatives out there, but that doesn't really necessarily mean that they're able to run a business, right? Or
Right.
Hmm.
inspire others
Yeah.
Right.
every day. Every day.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
That's true. Yeah. So financials is something we never really looked at. We
Yeah.
could not look at available resources where their financials were being published, so that's not publicly available. So that's one recommendation I think we're gonna think about in the future. Maybe perhaps ask general questions if the company is willing to share that with us. But in the end, we may not ever include that, unfortunately, which is not in keeping with the original hidden champion research from out of Germany. They do publish financials. I don't know how they talk. Like maybe what Tim said, maybe they have a long-term relationship and they're able to do that, where eventually they're trusted to provide some financial. But for us, it's
Yeah.
it's kind of double challenging. One, my students are young and I'm not Japanese. Who's this group of people
Yeah.
out in our waiting room?
Mm.
Um, and two, we don't have the luxury of time where we could get to know them closely and go have dinner and
Yeah.
chat offline. So we only visit them once or twice every 3 or 4 years, so that's not possible. Going down the line on this slide,
Hmm.
I this weekend I'd like to further explore the leadership and management backgrounds and approaches that, because we did hear a variety of leadership styles, and if you remember, some of them were quite interesting, right? Like they fell into it sometimes,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
the father
Yeah.
suddenly said,
Yeah.
"You take over."
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay, I have a question. So, in your earlier slide, you used the term strong leadership, right? And that kind of, that prompted me to think a little bit, because this is something Maya and I have talked about a lot, and that is, what is like what is leadership? What is strong leadership? And, it's culturally dependent. A strong leader in a Japanese company is going to look different usually than a strong leader in, say, an American company. Two different types, two styles. Not that one is better than the other, but
Right.
each one is a product of its own culture, right? And I know we don't have time to go into it, but I'm really interested in the strong leadership because I want to know, like, how are we defining strong leadership? What are we seeing? And this is just another thing I've seen with my own eyes. Okay, in America, which is not collectivist, which is individualistic, where you got all these individuals running around tooting their own horns, you need a really strong leader. And if you have a good, strong leader in America, you can have great teams who figure out how to leverage that, right? Twice, I've been in situations with Japanese companies in the US where the CEOs were considered clowns by everybody. And the middle managers underneath them said, failure is not in both cases. We can't let this guy who we don't really respect, but we can't let him fail because that's on us too. So they would, through sheer effort and inertia, bring about success. And what I learned from that is Japan can still do okay without a fantastic leader because they have that strong network and the collectivist culture and the high context and they have that to hold them together. And oftentimes it's the middle managers that save the company and that just keep things together. Not necessarily, because I know there are great Japanese leaders. I'm just saying, I think in America's more dependent on strong leadership. And when it happens in Japan, they go really far. I mean, I know you have those are the examples you're seeing, right?
Yeah. No, great point. What is good leadership or top leadership? Uh, something. It's not on this slide, but we did talk about it. I think last time we were together is a shift towards women in positions of leadership who are probably marking a new phase in some of these SMEs, that women not only have the characteristics, personal characteristics, but have the skill sets of being great leaders.
Yeah.
We begin to see that where that could be a great solution as well. That traditional mindset could say, you know what, we've got this pool of great assets,
talent,
and talent, and why don't we
tap into
allow or give them the opportunities or support them. I think if you remember the last time I spoke, we had interviewed 3 female CEOs in a row. Boom, boom, boom.
Yes. Yeah, it's really interesting. And once again, I'm going to go on a tangent here. But so everybody was saying, I remember that when the late Prime Minister Abe was talking about Abenomics and how he was going to actually support women in management, and he wanted to bring more women to management positions. So for the first several years, everybody said that's just, what's that? Kuchisaki? What is the rhetoric? Yes, just rhetoric, and it's not really something that the politicians want to do. And then my counter argument back then was that basically the top has to start talking about something new, a new idea, a new trend, so that it gradually, trickles down, that the idea is accepted, down the pyramid. And then it takes time. And eventually, I think that based on what you told us now, Dr. Joe, we are starting to seeing the results. of those internal politics, the politics, domestic politics, and the ideas of Mr. Abe, who nobody liked within Japan. I know that. But still, at the end of the day, this is once again a proof that things in Japan, new ideas in Japan, really take time before they take root.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
in the end, when it happens, it'll happen because it filled a need and it
Yes.
added value. I mean, they
Hmm.
had to be given a chance first, right?
Yes.
But there's a need. There's a
Yes.
short
Yes.
there's a shortage of not only leaders, but resources, human resources right now.
Yes.
And so the market has holes to fill, and at its own pace, it will, I think, I hope, will
Hmm.
continue to do that.
Hmm.
And I think everyone here, we know that Japanese women were Japan's best kept secret, underutilized resource for a very, very long time. I
Mm.
worked with fantastic Japanese women and American women too. Like, and it wasn't because they were women; they were just really good at what they did. And I've been saying for 20 years that eventually they're going to let them in. They're going to have to for their own good. It's taken longer than I thought, but I think it's happening. I hope.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point to both of you. Like Maya said, it just took a little bit of time, and then Tim, that they finally saw this real need in front of them that said, okay, it's time,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which is one of the things on the slide, right? Number 5 there is talent management is
Hmm.
uh, because of these changes that we began to see in, in these SMEs. I'd like to further research that and understand it a bit more. Obviously, we want to know what these SMEs have planned as far as global expansion, what specific business decisions they're going to be making to expand
Hmm.
and go abroad. We'd like to know those kinds of things. Um, I'm more interested in the human side than I am on the businessy
Yeah.
Right.
aspect.
Yeah. Me
So
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
like some of the stories I got to share, and this came from those last interviews we did, especially the women leaders.
Hmm.
Um, they were telling us more personal stories of how they came about to to
Interesting.
Yeah.
to be the president or the CEO of a company, right? It was more personalized. So I like that. So I'd like to
I
further
do too.
explore that. Yeah.
I have seen Japanese women almost invent a new leadership style. They weren't trying
Mm,
to be act like men, which I don't want them to because we got lots of weaknesses. We have strengths, but we have weaknesses too, right?
mm,
They did it in their own authentic way, and
mm,
and I think soft power is more powerful than it's just underrated. And
mm,
just the word soft implies it's weak, but it's not. And
mm.
so I'm happy with the trend, and I hope that more opportunities are given for sure.
Yeah. I am too. I look forward to it. Um, I think it's a good part of any society to use as much of its available resource, right? Its
Right.
available assets,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
rather than saying, well, let's overutilize this, and then when we run out, we'll go shift to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
uh,
For sure.
yeah. So I look forward. My research will begin this month. We're gonna hit the pavement going fast because, as I said, we want to interview at a minimum of 20 companies this year,
Yeah.
which
Great.
means we'll reach a good 50 or 60 by the end of, of all this studies that we've done. And I think that's a good number to finally say this is overall what the trends we're seeing and some of
Hmm.
the future potential outcomes that are going to take effect, meaning how these SMEs, in my opinion, because I'm biased, SMEs are really the backbone of Japan, and they may be the one um, saving. I don't know how to call it, but it may be the one thing that saves Japan is these SMEs. Meaning,
let's hope so. Yeah.
yeah. Meaning, it's an option for the youth. It's an option for even foreign workers who are interested in learning the skills and not having to join these big companies, but be able to join an SME and say, oh, wow, I'm giving all this skill, I'm giving all this leadership um, responsibility, and I count in this organization. So it could be a great topic to continue, and I want to continue it. I am, by the way, going to also jump into a totally different topic.
Yes, what
Different
is
research.
that? Yeah.
Go for it.
I think I mentioned it last time, but uh, I have another group of students that we're going to be researching nano uh, nano and micro learning. Um,
Mm-hmm.
not 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 exactly, but similar to TikTok. TikTok, sometimes somebody says, "Oh, I made some." Okay, I'm gonna use a little bit of my own culture. Okay,
Right.
I
Yeah.
made some tacos the other day. This is what I did, and then they do like a 1 minute video of how they made their tacos, right? And then
Right.
what what those videos really give us is this very short 1 minute lecture or lesson, really, but it's visual. And
Yeah.
so, what I'm hoping for is to study how to create uh, knowledge or sharing of knowledge
In bite sizes.
in a really small times. Yeah. And so,
You see that with guitar lessons on Instagram. I stop and some
right?
of those techniques are great and they open up new ideas. And
Yeah.
then the algorithm knows I lingered at that, so then all I get now are guitar mini lessons now. That's all I'm getting later. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Love it.
There's some gems, but there's also something to be said about the big picture as well. But at least for now, that as an entryway, I think it's a good, it's a
Yeah.
good development.
So that's what we'll be starting on this month as well
Nice.
as micro nano learning approaches, um, which is much different than, let's say, on the online lecture that's been you know
Right.
uh,
Right.
recorded, and it's an hour long, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Right. Kind of like this podcast.
Oh, this podcast is fun.
No,
You're
I
like,
think
oh,
there's
it's been an
value in
hour.
both.
What?
I think there's value in both spaces. You really need both, and I think one can entice into the
Mm-hmm.
bigger, the bigger
Yes.
picture. But I just want to say, I really support what you're doing, Joe,
Thank you.
and I believe in Japan. I believe they're going to find a way. I
Yeah.
probably believe in Japan more than Japan believes in Japan. But I've seen historically what they've been able to do. I've seen the quality of people. I see them every day. I feel like they'll figure it out. And the fact that you're helping nudge them along the way and toot their horn, it makes me really happy. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Good.
and I often say, and I want to clarify, I often say that I and my students do the research, but to be honest, they're doing it all. So,
Yeah, you got to
um,
give them credit. Right. Right
I
on.
yeah, I let them do the questioning and interviews and everything. Is that the correct word? Let them. I influence them to do
Okay.
it. And
You
then
Right.
really
provide
what
the conditions for them to do that too.
yeah, I
Yes.
provide the opportunity. And then really what I do is then we sit back and discuss it together. What did they learn, etc., and put it all in writing. So I'm wishing for the youth to build those skill sets to say they themselves believe in the nation of Japan.
Right. Yeah. That's the most important thing, I believe.
Mm.
If you, yeah, and that it will be great when you achieve that.
Yeah, thank you. When I finally
Yeah.
publish it.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that you have gained some really interesting perspectives and insights from your students. Yeah, you know, they're from another culture and they're young, fresh, they're tech savvier than we are, right? Our age. So I mean, I can imagine you've had a lot of aha moments, or at least said, wow, I never thought of looking at it that way. So that alone seems like it could be quite rewarding for you.
Mm, mm, yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Certainly
indeed.
for the students, right? As they're listening to these stories, they get
Yeah.
inspired, right? Like, wow.
Yes. And they see also that there is a different way, right? So because the every different company has its own way, and they have succeeded, but they have succeeded by following their own values.
Mm,
And in that way, also, the success for each company probably means, in addition to staying in business, of course, it means a little bit something different.
mm,
And what I think that students need to remember is that success means different things for everybody.
mm,
And as long as you stay in business and your employees are satisfied and the community you work with in and for is happy, then you're there, right?
Mm.
You have achieved it because we have had quite a few examples of successful companies. They're financially successful, but well, except for that, there is very little to say, right,
mm.
about their success. So, yeah,
Wow.
And they're
Adaptation.
globally disliked sometimes.
yes, yes, indeed.
Well, look at that. How fast time flies when you're having
Right,
fun.
yes,
I always enjoy our conversations, Joe. They're
Thank you.
always
always great.
enlightening
It's
and
nice to be
interesting.
back.
Well, I cannot wait for the next episode with you because
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is always something, I mean, that really comes up, and all these bits and pieces of wisdom that come from you are so invaluable. So thank you so very much for
Thank you.
sharing them with us.
Thank you to
Yep.
your listeners. Thank you so
Good.
much.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Okay, and with this, it's time to say, oh, whoa, it's past 9 o'clock to say happy midweek to everybody, and also
Yeah.
give a shout out to our sponsors once again, Kanchu, or as they're known online, Kanchu.com and Houze. So let's say goodbye and meet once again later this week. Oh,